friends, and welcome to edupediaworld.com, your destination to online education. Friends, today we are going to start with the very last session of introduction to mixtures and their separation with the methods of liquid and gas mixture separation and chromatography. So in this session, we'll be learning two very important separating methods with liquid and gas separation, where we have only one method, we call it boiling, and second very important method to separate the complex mixtures is chromatography. So let's start with the liquid and gas separation. So friends, how do we separate liquid and gas mixture? As it is separated by simply by boiling it. So how do we do it? As when a mixture of gas and liquid is heated, the gas escapes from the solution and leaving the solvent behind the container. What is the principle this method is using? As the principle is based on the fact that the solubility of a gas in a liquid decreases with the increase in temperature. For example, carbon dioxide can be taken out from the cool drink by heating, or you can say by this method, we call it boiling. The second method is chromatography. Let's understand, as it is a very important method because it is used to separate the complex mixtures which cannot be separated by very simple and common methods. Let's understand what is chromatography. Friends, chromatography. What is this method and why it is used, and for which mixtures it is used to for separation? Let's understand one by one. What is chromatography? It is nothing but the process of separation of the different dissolved constituent of a mixture. Which mixture we are talking about? We are talking about the complex mixtures, where the complex mixtures are nothing but those mixtures, they are the homogeneous mixtures in which the constituent substance have very similar physical and chemical properties. For example, sugar, hydrocarbons, or any coloring matter in ink. Yes? So next, what we understand, what is the principle it is used in the chromatography? Well, it is based on yes, please note it. It is adsorption of all the different substances on the surface of the solid medium. Now, friends, what is adsorption? Adsorption is the another term we used. Please don't be confused with absorption, as absorption is refers to the collection of one substance on the surface of another substance, right? Please don't get confused with absorption, as absorption is mixing of both the substance. So it is a modern technique used for the separation of mixtures of the substance. As the name chromatography means, chromatography means color writing, right? As it was originated by Michael Sweat in 1906. He used this method to separate the mixtures containing colored substance, which when separated form distinct coloring rings. These zones or rings are named chromatograms. He Let's write separating substance form coloring rings. We call it chromatogram, right? As these days chromatography is applied to colored as well as to the colorless substances for the analysis. Now friends, have you ever thought this very important method is used nowadays very frequent in industries also? What is the principle this whole method is using? Let's try and understand the whole principle of this method. As the chromatography depends upon the distribution of mixture between two phases. We have two phases. One is the fixed phase and another is moving phase, right? Which could be a liquid or a gas, is passed over the adsorbent column. Based on the respective natures of the fixed and the moving phase, the chromatography is classified under the types, like these are the types of chromatography. First is paper chromatography. Second is column chromatography. Third is thin layer chromatography. Fourth is a gas chromatography. As paper chromatography is the simplest of all these methods, so we'll be discussing paper chromatography. So in conclusion, let's understand now. Chromatography depends on the distribution of mixture between two phases. One is fixed and another is moving. The mixture dissolved in the moving phase, which could be a liquid or a gas, and is passed over the absorbent column. And these, based on the absorbent column, we have these types of methods of chromatography. First is paper, second column chromatography, third is thin layer chromatography, and fourth is gas chromatography. So we are going to understand about the paper chromatography, which is very simplest of all these methods. Now let's understand the paper chromatography. Paper chromatography. Yeah. As this type of chromatography mainly processed by a mechanism that is partly partitioned and partly absorbed, where we have two kinds of paper chromatography. First is circular paper chromatography, and second is ascending paper chromatography. Let's understand it one by one about the simplest method of paper chromatography. First is circular paper chromatography, where this type of chromatography mainly proceeds by the mechanism by two parts. First is partition and second is adsorption, right? These are the two mechanisms used by paper chromatography. The substance under study is generally dissolved in water and placed on a special sheet of filter paper prepared from the cellulose. As a circular filter paper is used, let's take first with the circular. Let's make the diagram, right? And I'll explain it later on. Let's make it first the diagram. This is a wick. This is a spot. This is a filter paper, the circular filter paper. This is a solvent. So A small wick is cut from the center and a drop of a mixture to be analyzed is placed near the center as a spot and allowed to dry. It is then developed in a suitable solvent. We call it irrigant. Irrigant, right? Is taken in the petri dish. Here you can see this beaker. We call it petri dish. The separation of mixture into its component thus takes place by the partitioning of different component between two liquids as each in a different phase, that is one in water on the paper and other in the solvent used as an irrigant. If we see this circular filter paper top to bottom, we can get the picture like this. Here is the hole, right? These are the circular rings. This is the vision from top to bottom. We have here the concentric rings of solute moving outwards. Concentric rings solute moving outwards. This is a filter paper. There's a vision from top to bottom. From here, if you see this filter paper like this is circular filter paper. So the concentric rings, each corresponding to a compound present in the mixture, are obtained by circular filter paper, and above this method we call it circular paper chromatography. We also have one more chromatography. We call it ascending paper chromatography. So for this type of chromatography, we need a rectangular sheet of filter paper. Let's understand now the second one. We call it ascending chromatography. Ascending chromatography, right? Here we take a rectangle filter paper, right? Which could be held in a vertically position and lowered in a suitable solvent. Let's take an experiment and understand about this ascending chromatography, which is a part of paper chromatography. Let's prepare a diagram. Right? This glass rod where we have a rectangular filter paper like this. This is a solvent, right? And this is the paper clip. It's the glass rod with the help of which the paper is being holded. So the filter paper we have taken here is a rectangular sheet of filter paper which is kept vertically in position and lowered in a suitable solvent. So let's take this experiment. Take a rectangular sheet of filter paper of approximately, this is of 10 centimeter into 8 centimeter of area. Mark out a horizontal line on the sheet above 2 or 3 centimeter from its lowered edge. Let's mark from here. I have marked here, which is just about 2-3 centimeter above this solvent, and put a cross on the mark near the middle of the line. So let's make a cross here. Prepare a mixture by mixing red and blue inks in equal proportions. With the help of a dropper, put about 2 to 3 drops of ink mixture on the cross marked on the line. Allow it to dry. Then fix the paper to a cork in a tall jar. As it's a tall jar where we are taking this experiment in, so that its lowered end rest at the bottom of the jar, and pour a mixture of water and alcohol in the proportion of 1:1, so that about a centimeter of the filter paper dips into the water alcohol mixture. Leave it for about an hour and the solvent rises slowly by capillaries action, reaching the cross marked on the line, and then goes on rising higher and higher. So what do you observe in this experiment? Let's take an observation. What happened in this experiment? Two colored lines are seen at different heights, like this. Let's take, these are the two colored lines, right? So what did I get? I get two colored lines at different heights. And when the difference in the height is appreciable, remove the paper from the jar and let it dry. By this experiment now we conclude that this simple experiment shows that the mixture had contained two different solutes. This is the conclusion we draw from this experiment, that two solutes were present in the mixture, right? So if I conclude, this rectangular filter paper of chromatography shows that we can also use rectangular filter paper for separating two solutes by simple experiment I have shown here, as this method has been standardized to such an extent that it can be used to identify compounds by the final positions on the paper chromatography. And this technique is widely used for analyzing natural products like amino acids too. So friends, after understanding about the methods of chromatography and the uses, let's understand now what are the advantage of chromatography over the other ordinary experiments and methods, why it is very important when we talk about the separations of the mixtures. Let's understand what are the advantage. The very first advantage is it is used to separate very small quantities like into micrograms, 10 to the power minus 6 grams of substance, which can be separated by this method. So what we write, a very small quantity of substance can also be separated by this method. As we can say, the quantity can be into micrograms like 10 to the power minus 6 grams. What is the second advantage over other methods is it is used to separate complex mixtures, right? What is the third advantage over the other? As it identifies the different constituents of a mixture. Different constituent of the mixture. And it also helps in quantitative estimation of ingredients of the mixture, right? Tells us the quantitative constituent of mixture. And yes, it is used to purify a number of industrial products also. So here, I hope you have a brief idea about the chromatography. Now let's brief out. So, it is the process of separating the different dissolved constituents of a mixture by the adsorption over an appropriate absorbing material is called chromatography, where we can also refer the term as adsorption refers to the collection of one substance on the surface of the another substance. We talk about the advantages. A very small quantity of the substance may be separated. The chromatographic method could be used to separate mixtures of those substances which have similar and physical and chemical properties. It identifies the different constituents of mixture. It also helps in the quantitative estimation of ingredients of the mixture, that is the constituent part substance of the mixture. And last, it is used to purify a number of industrial products, also the natural products like amino acids. So friends, here I end up with this session. The wonderful, all the sessions of introduction to mixtures and the separations. And now I have given a very important and very easy activity relating to all these sessions of introduction to mixtures and the separations. Let's take a look. Name a technique used to separate first iron then sulfur, second ammonium chloride and sand, third carbon and sulfur, fourth sodium chloride and sugar, fifth sand and water, sixth component of ink, seventh carbon dioxide and water, eighth petrol and water, 9. Iodine and alcohol. 10. Salt in a sea water. I hope you can do it very easily. Now friends, in next session we'll be learning very new session of the language of chemistry. Please view these sessions. Thank you friends. Thank you for attending this session.